Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of, you guessed it, opal cutting. Today we're tackling 4 pieces of rough opal. The customer that sent me these is a returning customer. Some of you may remember a video I made a few weeks back of a different rough opal which I cut for him. This rough opal has come from Minterby. Minterby is an elusive field in Australia. A lot of the mining was shut down by the government. Mining still does happen there, it's just not as many claims and not as many teams are in operation as there used to be. So let's jump across to the wheels and begin to make an effort on turning these into some gems. I almost forgot, we're going to need the lucky hat because we're tackling rough opal. This is the first of the 4 pieces. You can see I'm grinding in one edge and I keep double checking to see if there's any colour showing. This is important because you never know with rough opal if there's any colour hiding on the inside. I can already tell it's lending itself towards a cushion cut. This is why you see me cutting it into a rectangle shape. The problem is, there are loads of cracks in the face, so I have a suspicion this is going to get a lot smaller. Moving on to one of the larger pieces, I'm clearing up around the edge of the stone. Once again, like the previous one, I need to see where the colour bars lie. There are little flakes of colour all over this opal. Nothing worth keeping, but it's a hint to say that there might be some hidden colour bars on the inside. Turns out those flakes of colour didn't turn into anything, there's just colour on the top. So it's time to explore the colour on top to see if there's anything worth making from it. I don't think there is because there are cracks and a lot of sand, but it's always worth double checking. I'm seeing if the sand comes out the face at all, and it's just riddled with the stuff. I don't think this one's going to cut anything. Moving on to a large semi-crystal opal. This is a big bit of rough. From the side it shows really promising colour, reds, greens, blues, etc. However, there's lots of clouds in the face. This is why you see me rubbing the top of the opal on the wheel. I want to see if those clouds come out. If I can clean up the face as much as I can, then I can probably make quite a nice gem, but it depends how deep those clouds go. There's a particularly big one on that corner, so I just thought I'd double check to see if I can get it out. And those clouds do seem to clear up a little bit. I'm double checking the back side of the opal now. Because there is colour on the bottom, I thought maybe there's a chance I can make a larger, cleaner gem from underneath. However, it doesn't look too promising. My gut feeling now is just to turn this into a large oval cabochon. It's going to be a picture stone, but it still has relatively nice reds and blues and greens in it. I might have to talk to the owner of the stone to see exactly what they want me to do. So I'll leave it as large as possible for now. Onto this bright little gem here. It's got a relatively clean colour bar. There is some sand in the face, but I suspect that's going to come out. It's lending itself to a freeform, which doesn't look too unappealing, so I think I'm going to keep the freeform shape, but I'll see. It depends if any problems come up whilst cutting it. But the important part now is just to make sure that all that sand comes out before I make that final decision. I just realised I'm halfway through cutting. I'm in the pre-shaping stage, and I've just realised I forgot to video the opals in their rough form, which means you have no idea what the material I'm cutting looks like up close, which is kind of naff. So I'm going to put footage now of the stones. However, bit of a warning, they are somewhat shaped, etc. So if you don't want that spoiler alert, skip forward about 30 seconds to a minute. If you don't care, then stick around because I'll show you now. My apologies, I've not made that mistake before, at least I can't remember. Here's a quick snapshot of the material we're cutting up close. I'm not going to play this for very long because if I talk about them, it'll spoil what's going on with the cuts. So, soak it in because we're going straight back to the workshop now. Again, my apologies. Moving on to the 400 grit wheel to slowly perfect the shapes. With the cushion cut, it's always good just to round the edges just slightly. Having sharp edges is no use, so having just a little curve on them is always better. It's also a good chance to begin unrolling the setting edge. I'm using this chance for all of the opals just to get the shapes a bit cleaner. I could have done this on the dop stick, but the opals were large enough for me to do it by hand just quickly before then throwing them onto a dop stick. We're taking a quick moment here to discuss the opals. First of all, the biggest of the three. And I say three because obviously this one is just beaten by sand. We can't make a gem out of that. As you can see, there is a cloud of potch that runs in almost like an S shape from the top left to the bottom right. That runs all the way through the opal, meaning we have two separate colour patches or colour bars, whatever you want to call them, either side of the line. The trouble is they each have a cloud over the top of the colour. That's why it looks like it faces better from the side, because just the way the opal is formed, it's got a natural sort of cotton effect over the top. I've spoken to the customer and I said to him, I can make this into a cabochon, just one large cabochon that's a bit of a picture stone, or I know the customer is also practicing his carving, I can send it back to you and you can try and carve this cloud away, because as you can see, the camera can't quite pick it up, but the colour bar runs underneath. Very, very thin, but it is there. So I reckon you could carve this side down, revealing more colour, and just have an undulated carved piece that has more colour. But he said he's happy for me to just put a cabochon on this whole gem and have a picture stone instead. I did say to him that worst case scenario, if he ever changes his mind, he can always carve it later. The small cushion cut is real simple. I just need to add a polish to it now. And this one has its own problems. As you can see, it's got a crack running through here. Now, the annoying part is that crack is sat on the best colour. Beggars can't be choosers, it has to go. So what I'm thinking is, because it runs in an arc, perhaps getting rid of it and making a diamond shape. Or even just nicking off the corner and then making a parallelogram. I'll have to decide that in a second. So we're left with three opals that now need a polish. So let's get back to the wheels. Okay, so I made the executive decision to leave this as a freeform shape. The crack went in a lot further than I originally anticipated. What that means is I wasn't able to make a diamond shape from it or a parallelogram. It's left me with this freeform. I'm gonna leave it as a freeform and I'll explain why. Because of the brightness of the colours, if I was to cut this to a uniform shape, I'll be losing a lot of weight to not really gain that much value, or if any at all. I don't think it would increase the value whatsoever. So I think it's a better decision to leave it as large as possible. That way, when someone comes to buy it, they have a big opal. Yes, it's freeform, but that lends itself to quite a quirky ring shape. For example, if that was set in gold or silver, it's a large opal ring, but I could obviously cut it to a smaller oval, but you're not really gaining much. So I think it's best to leave it as a freeform shape. It's time now to get all the opals onto some dop sticks. Now that the opals are on their dop sticks, it's a lot easier to dial in the shape and begin to get a nice cabochon. Or a nice dome, depending on what word you use. Rolling the setting edge right now. I'll be doing this for all of the opals, of course. That way, whenever they get set into jewellery, the bezel or the claws have something to grab onto. With a cushion cut, it's important to be really precise and having straight edges. It can be a little bit difficult, but practice makes perfect. Once you're confident that the square is perfect, roll in those edges and take off those really sharp corners. Time for the large oval. It has a really uneven dome right now from my attempts to take out the clouds. So for me, it's important at this stage just to make sure that I'm getting a perfect, even dome over the whole opal. It's going to take a lot of work, especially on the 400 grit wheel, but it's worth it. This here is the 600 grit wheel. Like I've said before, this is quickly becoming my favourite wheel. It sets the opal up for a really nice pre-polish and also allows me just to change the shape slowly but surely. It's an incredibly loud wheel though, so I've turned the sound down quite a lot. I'm taking out all the scratches left behind by the previous wheels, allowing me to move on to the 1200 and then 3000 grit wheels to add the pre-polish. I of course need to inspect my work under a loupe. This stage is super important. You need to make sure there are no deep scratches left in the face, or otherwise, when you go to the cerium oxide, they're going to stand out clear as day. Once I'm happy with my work, I move over to the cerium oxide onto a felt wheel. And this here is a really satisfying stage of the process. Getting that mirror polish and seeing all the reflections in the face of all the colour play in the opal is incredibly satisfying. Cheers! So the polish on the opals is now complete, and as you've seen, there's over 13 carats of polished opal. Now, the question is, hence from the title of the video, did the customer make money from this parcel? To give you an idea, he bought from an auction, and there were 2 parcels, this is being one of them, and he bought 2 parcels for £700. So we've got another bag of small cutters here, some chips and inlay material here, and again some more chips material here. So part of the £700 were these three bags of opal. So you could probably value that. Let's split it down the middle and say that was 350. And out of that amount, he's got these 3 polished opals. They are the best of the parcel that I could sort through. So there are a couple of cutters left, but these are the best ones that were there, so I decided to cut and polish those. In terms of making money, it's a difficult one for me to judge. I've said it before and I'll say it many times, I am a wholesaler, so my prices are very different. However, with 13 carats of opal, there's white opal and there's the large, almost 9 carat semi-crystal. The brightness averages at about 1 to a 2. Each of them show red, greens and blues. The colour play is very minimal, but that's just because picture stone, not very bright colours, things like that. So if you were to sell this as a parcel of 13 point whatever it was carats, I think, personally, I don't think I could ask more than, say, £250 for the lot, which averages at about £20 a carat. So again, If that wasn't wholesale, let's say you're selling at retail, you can double it and you could maybe sell them for 500 to the right person if you're selling at retail prices. I don't think that's too unfair considering there is a 9-carat opal in there. But again, there might be a struggle to sell at that price. Just depends who you find and what jewelers you find. Now, obviously, there's a cushion cut, which is uniform. There's the large oval, which is uniform, and the freeform shape, which would make a pretty little pendant or even a ring, depending on what you're looking for. If we couple that with all this extra material and say this was the 350 half, then I think it's safe to say that he's made money. £250 here, and I think you could get another 150, maybe 200 with all this material on the side. You could probably ask for more, but I don't tend to sell chips and inlay material, so I'm not too sure on the pricing there, but I think that's a fair amount to pay. Obviously, it's up for debate. It all depends on how much he's able to sell it for, but that's my assessment, that's my evaluation, and I think it's fair. If you don't think it's fair, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm always happy to hear feedbacks, things like that. Speaking of feedback, please let me know if there's anything you want me to change about my videos in the future. I'm happy to orientate them to what you guys want, what you want to see more of, things like that. So if you've enjoyed today's video, please like it. That way I know you've enjoyed it and it's recommended to more people. Leave a comment down below with what you think, any improvements I might be able to make on my channel, things like that. And of course, the all-important subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, I recommend you do so, because I produce weekly opal content. So if you're an opal addict, it suits you down to a T. But all in all, I'm happy with the results. It's very classic of mint to be opal to look better from the side, so just bear that in mind for the future. The material is prone to cracking and crazing, so there's a couple little tips for you all there. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in a week's time.